Project Zero has been wrapped up. Just want to do a little overview of the truck and what went into the making, the building. Did a lot of upgrades, not a lot of custom work here, but I would still call it a custom truck. It's all been redone. Just no custom fabrication, not too much custom fabrication going on here. A lot of bolt-on upgrades. Trying to get this one to work as strong as possible, or probably not as strong as possible, but a competent SCX10, a little stronger than your average brushed machine. First, I'll start with the body. We went with the Dodge Ram pickup. Obviously, it was a nitro body. There's a nitro cutout underneath this panel that I put on there. I didn't cut it out, but after I painted the body, I just didn't care for the way it looked. So got this Lexan sheet, fitted it to the rear, and installed it with a few screws, and that went together pretty well. I painted it black, metallic black. It got holographic spastics paint. Did a light mist and a holographic spastics, followed by metallic black, layers of metallic black and holographic spastics. Then I did a little metal flake in there, and then finished it off with metallic black. Behind that, I put a Pactra backing black, because that gives a nice finish. It's pretty helpful as far as keeping your body together. Puts a really nice protection on there. So that's the body. For electronics, I ran a Rock 412. That's a brushless motor from Tekin. It's made specifically for rock crawling. This will be the first time I've used it. I have another Tekin brush system, but that's a Redline motor. I believe they're similar motors, but we'll see as soon as this one gets out on the trail. To power that, I'm using the Mamba Max Pro in brushless mode. Simple setup. I've adjusted a few of the settings. 50% drag brake. Didn't want it too strong, because I'm not going to be using this to scale anything. This was going to be strictly probably a trail truck. Push a little dirt around. It should be plenty powerful enough. For the servo, I got a 5645 MG metal racer's edge servo, little servo horn, a little basic servo horn I use on all my projects. That's powered by Castle BEC at 6 volts. Nothing too fancy with the servo there. I ended up using that. I had a couple of those left from another project, and so I just used that in this one. It's plenty powerful enough, and running at 6 volts, it gives a little bit more torque, so it'll do just fine. Spectrum 201, nothing special with the receiver. I use Spectrum radios, so I always throw a Spectrum 201 or 301 up in there. Mostly 201s. I don't use the third channel very much. And all the time I use Duratrax Onyx 5000 25C LiPo. This battery performs well in every RC I own. I use it in every RC I own. I couldn't ask for more. They last long. I submerge it in water. It's not been waterproof. They still hold up. It's probably not the best thing. I do not recommend submerging your LiPos in water without any sort of waterproofing, but these hold up. I treat them terribly and they hold up well, so I highly recommend that battery. For speed freaks, they want a little more output. That might not be enough for them, but that battery works fine for me, and it powers all my crawlers just fine. It powers all my RCs just fine, but that's a different subject. So that's about it for the power system. Pretty basic setup. Nothing crazy. It's a censored motor. The Mambo Max Pro accommodates a censored motor, and that's one of the reasons I went with that ESC. I haven't used the Tekin ESC yet, and I didn't want to start here. I have pretty much Castle in all my machines except for the Traxxas vehicles that came with the Traxxas ESCs, so I stick with Castle until I find a need to change. For the suspension, I used all axial parts, all axial aluminum suspension, the custom upper links, because Axial offers a funky little way to give you links. They try to accommodate all users, so they give you a couple pieces to put together to make the upper suspension links, but it works and I can't complain. So that's that. Aluminum suspension from Axial as well, aluminum steering linkage from Axial as well in the front. That should help. The stock Honcho steering has a lot of bend in it, and we had to get rid of that. STRC, no, I used Axial. I generally use STRC, but this time I used Axial hubs, chubs, knuckles, and lockouts in the rear with the Axial logo plastered all over them. I didn't care for that too much, but what can you do? Could go through the effort of trying to get them cleaned off, but forget about it. That's the way it is. So I got aluminum all the way around, and that's about it for the suspension and the steering setup. Next we'll move on to the drivetrain. We have MIP steel drive shafts, CVDs, Axial metal gear transmission on the inside. I run down to Axial universals in there. You can barely see it shining through. It gives much more steering than the stock setup, with the stock dog bones. So that's pretty much it for the drivetrain. Nothing too special there. Just all steel from the motor on down to the feet. For the wheels and tires, using Dick CPEC DC2s. That's a 3-piece internal bead lock. The outside piece slips over a ring on the inside, and the screws are in the back. It gives it a clean face. These 6 screws here do nothing but hold that nut cover on. I said in a previous video that'll be the last time I screw that nut cover on, because that was terrible. I actually stripped one of the screws in the installation process. So once those come off, they'll never go back on. But the wheels look just fine without the nut covers on. I just put them on because pretty much I paid for them to be on there. On those beadlock rims are Mickey Thompson Baja Claws 1.9s. The aluminum rims are not vented, so it gives the tires a nice feel. The foam is a bit soft. These are all RC 4-wheel drive stock foams. They come with the tires, the Mickey Thompsons, and they look like they're going to work well. They have just as much plush as my other crawlers that are vented, so pretty anxious to see how that works out on the trail. These won't be crawling so much, so it shouldn't have any performance difficulties at all. It should be just fine. And that's about it for the build. I did the dual battery trays. I wanted to keep the battery in the back. actually did dual receiver boxes as well. The upper one holds the actual receiver, and the bottom one is filled with lead. I believe 160 grams of lead holding that front down, just so I can push it over, to help push it over anything it might need to go over. So all that's sitting on the front battery tray, in addition to the rear battery tray that's holding the battery like it's supposed to. That's about it for Project Zero. I can finally take this truck out and put it through its paces and see how it runs.